Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Process Podcast. Leigh Coates.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
How you doing today?
Good. Real good, thanks.
You have just arrived back after 6.5 months on the road.
Mm-hmm.
How's that feel?
Yeah, pretty epic. Yeah, lots of things happened in those 6.5 months.
Take us right. No, let's not go back to the start just yet. I need a bit more. I need to fill the story a bit more. I mean, the biggest obviously change to you right now is the fact that you are now the second fittest woman in the world in the 55 to 59. I have to provide context. I have to say your age. Sorry, Leigh. 55 to 59 age group at the CrossFit Games. First year going to CrossFit Games, finishing on the podium. Can I just ask you, because I listen to a lot of like celebrity podcasts or people who talk about their story and like when they made it. Can I ask you the first question, like, is life any different now that you are the second fittest in the world and you've been to CrossFit Games?
Not for me, no. No. Quite a humble person. I think nothing's changed. Coming back into Coastal was fabulous, great. Just back into the fold, really nice. It's all a little bit surreal. It's like, oh my God, yeah, that did happen. Oh yeah, that's where I got. And yeah, but nothing really has changed.
Did you think going in when you booked your spot to go to the CrossFit Games in the first place, did you ever think that life would be different now that you were a CrossFit Games athlete?
No, not really, because I never really thought that that's where I was going to end up. Never really knew where it was going to take me. Was just taking it one stage at a time. So to actually think about, okay, yeah, what if, and at the end of the games, should I even get there? How will it feel? Was never something that I considered.
Can I ask, because I feel like in the time I've known you, the goal of making it to the CrossFit Games has been like there. It's been mentioned, it's been said, it's been tagged on Instagram posts. How long has that been your goal to get there, to make it?
Since I realised that I perhaps could.
When was that?
If that makes any sense. So when I first started CrossFit, I kind of was able to, my fitness up until that point was okay, it was pretty good. So I was able to get into the routine of training every day, which I really enjoyed, was able to pick up the movements quite well. Of course, the high skill movements was obviously going to be a challenge, but generally I felt like I was doing okay from the start. And of course, lots of things needed work, but carrying on, getting better, training every day, getting fitter, getting stronger. And then different places that I trained at, I had to leave, different things happened. The gyms actually shut down. But I think it was really when I first got to Coastal that I thought, actually, this is my big step into doing something for myself for a particular goal. I thought that, yes, it could be something that was within my reach. I just needed to apply myself a little bit more, and knew that with the help from Coastal, that if anything or anyone was going to get me there, it would be this place.
What was the trigger? Like what suddenly made you think that, because I think you were training and using CrossFit as a training methodology, I'm guessing for just like health.
Yeah, and enjoyment.
And enjoyment, community.
Something so different to what I'd ever done before.
Yeah, what was it about joining Coastal Fitness that suddenly the goal became like, I want to make it to the biggest stage in the sport?
I wanted to get a better athlete. I was following what Coastal were doing from my previous gym and aspired to be part of that, to have the coaching and the experience, and not necessarily the methods that you had because this was before the process, right? So, but just the way that you trained and the way and the thought process behind all of that. Whereas up until that point, I was just training. I was just doing an hour's work.
Doing an hour.
Yeah, and enjoying what I was doing. But when I needed to switch gyms, it was a case of, well, I could go to any of the gyms in Hong Kong, but actually what I want, I think this place will get me there.
I actually don't know about your training background before CrossFit. So let's put some timestamps on this. I think you joined us in 2016, was it?
Yeah.
About
16 or 17. It was like, it would have been after the summertime.
And then, so how many years prior to that had you been going to CrossFit gyms?
I think it was about 2014.
When you started?
Yeah.
Okay, so 8 years in the sport. What
Yeah.
were you doing before that? Because I don't know if you know how I know you, but the first time I ever met you or spoke to you was actually when I was still playing rugby, myself and Ant at cricket. We had a cricket club social, so we were playing for cricket club, and obviously Mike Coates. I knew Mike because Mike was like captain of the third team, I think he was, and so Coates, he would always get up and do a speech and like hand out his awards for his team, and it was always like, you know, big club thing. And then you would always be there as obviously Mike's partner. And I think we met once, I think just briefly at one of those nights, and I basically didn't see you again really like for probably 3 years until you kind of got into CrossFit.
Right.
And then I saw you because I'd stopped playing rugby at that point in time, and I saw you and I remember thinking, wow, like she's changed a lot. Like you'd put on a lot of muscle, your body had completely changed. And then I can't remember where it was, but watching you actually work out, I think it might be in a competition or a gym or something in Hong Kong, I was just like,
was it the downtown?
Maybe it was a downtown throwdown. I was just like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
So what was your training story? What was your training history before CrossFit?
So before CrossFit, I was when I came to Hong Kong, I was just doing regular classes at California Fitness.
It's like body pump type thing, or? I
did do body pump, yeah. But I would just do all the classes, you know. I would just try do all the different things, try them all out, and would go 2 or 3 classes a day. Loved it. And then whilst I was doing that, I started Dragon Boat training, and was on a really cool team here. Very competitive. At that time, we were, storming everything. It was just a really, really good time to be involved. And I was probably 7 seasons into Dragon Boat training. And towards the latter part of that was doing outrigging as well. Lots of paddling, but doing the other classes every day as well. Just the, fitness classes.
Before Dragon Boat, had you ever been in sport?
Let's think. Yeah, not necessarily sport as a team sport. I'd always belonged to like a global gym, that type of thing, where I would just do classes. I would never go into a gym and think, oh, I'm going to go and pick up these weights and I'm going to follow this program, or I'm going to... Never. I don't think I'd ever really picked up any weights since I'd started doing CrossFit. So, it was nothing... Just
as a kid,
stuff.
Were you sporty?
Yeah, I mean, from school, I was always did all the team sports at school. I was judo for many years, from school into college, and then at college it was just too far away. I was just missing training, so I stopped doing that. But then was still doing a few classes whenever I could. Along the way, but nothing.
Have you always looked athletic? Even as a kid, were you one of those young girls with a 6-pack and who just always was jacked? No.
My early thoughts are of my mum calling me tree trunk legs.
Really?
And it's just like, that's always stuck with me. And it's just like, and then at school, someone said that because my legs are so short, I just look like a bum on legs.
Legs.
And it was just like, these little things that you remember now would just like destroy you, right? But at the time, it was obviously just something that I thought was really quite funny and just stayed with me. But I've always been doing things. I've always been quite athletic. I always loved the challenge and doing exercise of some description. But that was back at school. And then, as I say, I guess judo was the gap between that and then being at work. And then I lived so far away from where I worked that there wasn't really the time to apply to training too consistently, or not training. It was just exercise, right? It was like step classes and aerobic classes, going back a while. So, it's that type of thing. But I would always squeeze classes in. It's so funny. So went back home to the UK, and my friend, who I haven't seen for 3 years, right, she's like, oh my God, obviously really proud and chatting, and she said, I should have known, she said at the time, she said, because you would always come home from work, we were travelling like south of London, like long way, back and forth to work, and she'd say, you would always come home like on a Friday night after working a full week and whatever, she said, and you would always squeeze in a class, which again was miles away, before we went out on a Friday night. She said, there's me just like sitting on the couch with a cup of tea, and I'm saying, right, I'm just going to go and squeeze in this class, and then I'll pick you up on the way back. And, she said, I should have known then. So it's funny how these little things, and I'm like, oh yeah, God, I remember that. I remember doing that. I would just squeeze in a class wherever I could. I'd always do something. If I had a spare hour, I'm going to fill that hour, and I would do that, and I'd just do it.
So clearly, like, health and fitness training has always been a part of you. Where do you think that came from?
I really don't know. Just love the whole concept of it all. I think when I was travelling, I would always try and squeeze in classes. I'd always look into where the gyms were and what classes I could fit in. And, I was on a budget, and I was like spending all my budget on my classes. And, it's okay. I can, I was obviously not into nutrition at all. So it was just like, well, okay, if I just eat that for dinner tonight, and I won't have to spend so much money, but I can afford my class today. So things like that. And then when I lived in Australia, I think I found a gym, and again, in between work, I would just do, I don't know. There was times where I was doing 25 classes a week.
So then you basically were training like a CrossFit Games athlete before you even knew about CrossFit. But
just doing all stuff, like whether it be body conditioning, or if it was step classes or aerobic classes or legs, bums and tums, or whatever it was, all these little things.
Can I ask, what is it about? Because it sounds like the group classes has been a big part of everything you've always done. What is it about the actual group classes that's had you so hooked for so long?
I don't know. I just think it's just being part of something, and the atmosphere and the enjoyment, and being part of something that others are doing as well, and knowing that you're capable of that, and that you sit well within that group, or that you can always push yourself a little bit more. I don't know, really. There's no definite thought process that goes into any of that, or there never was. It's just something that I enjoyed pushing myself, and it's funny.
Can I ask, like, I know your husband Mike is, so supportive of everything you do within CrossFit and training, and all the crazy things and adventures that this sport takes you on. But over the years, like, what have your friends thought about you and doing all this? Because I can imagine. I mean, I know what my friends. Luckily now, most of my friends are into health and fitness, but I know over the years, like, there's been lots of thoughts, conversations, comments about being obsessed, like mildly addicted, having issues. What's it been like for you? Or are you surrounded by a group of people who are super supportive and have always been by your side?
Yeah. My friends have always been very, very supportive. Because, as you say, you kind of can choose friends, and you look to those that are very similar to yourself. And, like with the Dragon Boat, for instance, coming here and getting involved in that team. I think the first time I'd got myself into that situation of being part of that team was at Stanley race day. And we'd gone out for a few sessions before that, as everybody does. They get like a package of, say, 10 sessions before you actually go into the race. And I was part of the rugby club's team. So we had these massive units. These guys were just like massive. And then there was a few women, very few women. But of course, you needed a few in the boat. And so I went along and just absolutely loved being part of that. Really enjoyed it. Loved the race day, etc. And just knew then that I wanted to take this further, wanted to do more than this. So my friend that was part of this other club, she's like, come and join with us. Now, bearing in mind, I've only been training like Dragon Boat like once a week for the last, say, 5 or 6 weeks. We train 3 times a week, and then we do this and then we do that. And I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty hardcore to me. That's like, oh my God, that's a real step up. But literally, by the time I'd started it, I was doing those sessions every week. Just really got into it, loved it, and we did really well. So I wanted to be part of that team because we were a good set of friends that were all very driven in that respect. So with that in mind, I guess that's kind of where it all comes from as well. Like I could have just been a recreational paddler, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be part of the team that was going to be doing well, because we were all very like-minded people. We had a good coach at the time. It was all fantastic. We were all, looking at the same goal, all fighting for our seats in the boat as well, because there was so many of us at the time. So yeah, there'd always been that connection with like-minded people. The group classes at the gyms, I was just on my own. I was just doing that. I just wanted to go along, so there wasn't anyone there that I was connecting with as such. But I just think obviously the support from family has always been there, and just the friends that I've had have generally been around some type of sport or fitness.
It sounds like Dragon Boat was a first real taste of competitive sport for you.
Yeah.
Did that have a massive impact on you then pursuing CrossFit, do you think?
There was a crossover at the time of doing both. So at one point I was doing a few classes at this other gym, but then that shut down. So then I was just doing the Dragon Boat and then doing my CrossFit. So there was a crossover at the time, but again, with the Dragon Boat, you would just go out, you would just train, and you'd come home, and that would be it. There'd be no real warm-up. There'd be no look after yourself. You've got to do this. You've got to compensate by doing more of this rather than more of this. And so when I started with CrossFit, it wasn't particularly helpful for me to be Dragon Boating, because I was so closed all the time. Very short here, rounded through the back. All these things now that I can look back and think, oh God, yeah.
Great for Dragon Boating, but maybe not so great for going overhead in CrossFit.
Exactly. Yes. So I think it might have been Hightower said to me, do you really need to carry on with your Dragon Boat training? Or it might have been Rob Lee, I'm not even sure. Probably Hightower. He's like, do you really need to do that? I'm like, well, no. He said, okay, just a thought. And I thought, oh, actually, yeah, I've been doing it 7 years now. I could, probably, I was on the tail end of it all now, and just thought, yeah, actually, I'm just going to do more of the CrossFit and less of the Dragon Boat. And then I probably for the next year just jump in the boat whenever they needed me, but wasn't training with them like I was, for the last 7 years.
Yeah. All right. So you joined Coastal. The goals shift now.
Yeah.
You've now started to think about competition. I still remember as well, you always did the Open. I feel like you were signing up to a lot of little competitions. Every time there's a competition on, Leigh Coates would be there competing. And I will also say, you were always competing in the main division. I think most of these comps in Hong Kong didn't have masters divisions. And it was really cool to see you being competitive. And I think when I think about when you made it to the CrossFit Games this year, the craziest thing to me was the fact that you follow our group program. Yeah. You follow the compete program. Yep. You do group classes. Yep. Yes, you stay behind pretty much every day and do your accessory work. But I just think that's such an amazing story. That you've actually this whole time from you starting fitness in your early years to now, you've always been a part of a group program. Yeah. And it's actually enabled you to get to the top of your sport and finish second on the podium. Don't know. Do you ever think about that and how cool that is?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I think the perception is that anybody that is at that level as a CrossFit athlete, they must have their own program. They must have their own trainer. They must be, working one-to-one all the time. They've got their own program that they follow. Well, I didn't. I was doing my thing here, was consistent with my classes. I knew that I was well-rounded athlete as I possibly could be. There wasn't anything that was lacking. Of course, CrossFit Games training is very different, but generally speaking, I think it's just great.
But were there ever times that you doubted what you were doing? You thought, maybe I need to have something a bit more individualized or
I'd spoken to Ant a few times and said, what do you think about doing iTrain or one-to-one? Because I knew that was a bit of a buzz that was going around and something else that you guys were offering that early days wasn't a thing. So I'm like, okay, should I be perhaps doing that instead? Should I be looking at something more individualized? Should I be doing my one-to-one instead? And, leave the class environment. It's like, no, you're doing well with what you're doing. Just continue. And don't think that it's going to be any more beneficial for you to do that. So yeah, I just stayed with the program.
Nice. Thank you for staying with the program, Leigh.
Yes.
I think something we always talked about was that, because in your case, the things that were holding you back in the sport were not so much physical capacities. Like, you were aerobically very fit. You still are very fit. In a lot of the main lifts, you're very strong. But it was the technical side of things like gymnastics and Olympic lifting that I think we all agreed was the area you needed to work on. I think something we discussed was if we put you on an iTrain program or a remote program where you're in the gym yourself following along with a training program, you don't have a coach's eye on you. And I think we all agreed that was something you really needed the most, and we could give you that in a group class. There's always a coach watching you. And of course, like, I know you've supplemented with individual sessions, one-on-one here and there as well. You have the coach's eye. So I think that's a really important thing to distinguish, you know, as an athlete thinking about whether group classes or the remote program is your thing. And if for someone who's in the early stages of the sport development and you need a coach's eye on you all the time, then I think most of the time a general program with someone watching you is going to be more beneficial than going down the individual route. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And even, you know, I don't know whether there comes a point where you don't need that. You're always going to need that, I think.
Yeah, totally.
You know, because you can so easily slip back into old habits or certain thought process and patterns that you might get into that hold you back in other ways, just like mentally. And you think, oh, you know, it wasn't a great day today. And then you think, oh, last week wasn't such a great day, or, you know, and it's, but if you're consistent with your classes and you have other people around you, and as you say, you still have, even though the coach has got the rest of the class to look at, I you know, I think it was really nice to know that there was always an eye, and I always chose what classes I would go to, etc., so that I could get you know, that eye on me because I know that I needed that.
We're about to talk about your season this year, but before we talk about your season, I'll summarize your season. You qualified through the CrossFit Open, which you did in Hong Kong.
Yeah, we just about got through that, didn't we?
We did just about. Then you fly to Dubai. You do the age group qualifiers, and you finished first. And then was there not another stage?
Yeah. So we
which
had
was
quarters
called,
and semis.
That's right, quarter. Then we did the quarterfinals, and we had the semi-finals, where you finished. Help me out here, Leigh. Internet has gone a bit slow. Where did you finish in the semi-finals, please? It's not on here. Anyway, you do enough. You had to finish top 10 in the semi. Yeah, had to finish top 10 in the semis, and then you go to CrossFit Games and you finish second. But before this year, you had a few years where the goal was to make it and you didn't quite make it. What was the biggest difference this year? I think one of the obvious differences was that you entered a new age category. But what were some of the other biggest differences? What allowed you to actually make it this year?
I think I don't honestly know how to answer that question, because there wasn't one thing or a couple of things that I did any differently. I was always consistent with my work. I was always doing my best. The thing about the age group, I would have still done my best. I would have still, you know, I know that it was a little bit different going into that different age group, but I was always still of the mindset of the 50 to 54s, you know, and these were my people that I'd be looking at and, you know, like pegging myself against, rightly or wrongly, but of course you need to know where you are. So I think it was just a formality that this year was a different category, but I really don't think there was anything that had changed. I was still as, you know, as regular, and my mindset was still, I'm going in to do my best. It was never, it's, you know, I'm just going to sandbag this workout because I'm not feeling so great or whatever. It was never like that at all. So, yeah. I
feel like your capacity as an athlete really improved this year. I feel like there was things that you did differently. Obviously, you've got the benefit of just having that extra year of experience every time and an extra year of really consistent training. And I'd probably say during COVID, because none of us traveled, like even though we had constant gym closures, you were super consistent for a really long time.
You invested in a coach
to help you with all your accessory work. You know, you had a couple of areas that we really needed to focus on. Some holes in your game, we could say.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say you put a lot of time and energy towards those things. Basically after class, almost every day, I feel like you were here doing your accessory work.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
And I think one of the big observations from me is that watching you in years past in the CrossFit Open and the age group quarterfinals, by the time the competition has arrived, you look like you've got nothing left to give. And I feel like I guess this is the stress of competition and the stress of the calendar, I feel would get to you quite a lot. And when it came time to perform, you know, you would come in and like, you'd feel like, you'd say you had no sleep, stressed out your mind, you'd have a cold sore, you know, your body was just you had little niggles and injuries, and like, it was clear that you were just falling apart just when we needed you to be at your best. What do you think when I say that? Would you?
Yeah, there are times where that would be fair. Yeah.
What changed this year though? Because I feel like you took this year in your stride so much better than previous years. And when it came time to perform, I feel like you had so much more to give.
Previous to that, we were in lockdown for so many months. When I scrolled back through my phone the other day and was looking at different things, it's just like, everywhere I scrolled and stopped, it was me doing my workouts, either in my car park, on my roof, running the street, whatever it was. And it was just like, scroll, same. Just like, that went on forever. And when I do think about that, yeah, I was consistent, as I would have been had I been here. But when I do think about that, I think it makes it even more special that I got there this year, because I wasn't in the gym like all of those Americans that I was up against this year. And they were, I think it was one English and the rest of them were Americans. They didn't have the clothes that we did. They were still, and even if they did, they were in their well-equipped gym that they had in their garage. And we're just like scrambling for weights.
You had a barbell,
ridiculous.
2 plates.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
That was basically
TRX.
it. Yeah, TRX. And
that
a
was
door that I used to hang myself up.
And that was cute in since last season, that was 8 months. Was 8 months of the year. How do you think that took the pressure off in any way?
No, I still felt the pressure for sure this year because of leaving Hong Kong. That made everything more compounded. It was just, a lot more pressure by leaving than staying. Doing my workouts at home, there was no pressure. Yeah, I wanted to get them done, of course, but it didn't matter if I did them at 12:30, which is what I tried to do. But it's like, this is my routine. You know, there'd be things that would happen and you just think, I'll do that later. So, you know, I'd still get it done, but there wasn't the pressure at all by doing it from home in the same way that like coming into class and being consistent here. It was
I guess it's like, I guess what I was also thinking was that you've almost got a scapegoat to use if you didn't make it again. You could say, well, the gym was closed for 8 months. And then, you know, that kind of the pressure was taken off you because you've had such a rough road to get here that if you made it, it would be magical. And if you didn't, it would be expected. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I never felt like that though. No, never felt like that. It was just, okay, we just got to get over this hurdle. And I think the main thing was, how are we going to get to do the Open? Because it was, you know, I had been so considered. I had been doing so much work that to then have that taken away from me, it was like having the rug pulled. You know, I can't do anything about it. It wasn't in my control. I'd done everything that I could, but you know, these lockdowns were a different animal, weren't they? We just didn't know if it was going to happen or not. And then just, like, I think even from one week to the next, we were not even sure if we were going to be able to do that third week because we didn't know what it was going to be, and all the rigmarole of setting everything up downstairs was very challenging for you guys. And it was just so grateful that did happen, because that was the start, you know, and that could have been my end at the same point, you know, really. So yeah, just so grateful that bit we'd gotten through that. But of course this year we had the insight of knowing what that list was going to be for the next few workouts. Well, that was new this year, wasn't it? They never told us what that was going to be. So I think when I look back, the stars were quite aligned, to be fair. you know, I know there was a lot of crap that happened before that with all the closures, but when from that moment on that I was able to finish the Open, and then we knew what was going to happen for the quarterfinals, and then the semi-finals was, of course, we wasn't sure, but again, that was new to us this year. We never had to do quarters and semis. And again, it was down to the top 10, whereas it used to be top 20. And then in years gone past, it had changed because CrossFit, the CEOs had changed, and the way that they work in HQ were all different as well. So again, that was all part of my journey, things that were out of my control.
But I think I love that you've put a positive twist on this, and you know, you're seeing it as the glass half full. And that this is something that was actually a blessing for you, and it worked out beautifully. But can I just be honest, like as your coach, or as a coach, you know, who's worked with you for so many years, one of the things that I was really fearing when we were closed and there was nothing we could do about it was that you were going to give up on the year. I also know that, like, you know what areas of your game you need to work on. Like you needed to work on snatch, you needed to work on your pulling strength, and yes, you had a light barbell, but you didn't have anywhere you could do pull-ups.
No.
And I just remember thinking, like, one of these days, Leigh's just going to message and just say, like, I'm giving up. I'm not going to do it. I can't. I can't work on my weaknesses just being at home in a car park and on a roof. But, and I'm thinking back now, like, you never ever did say that.
No, it was a case of, okay, like speaking to different groups. Who knows where I can do pull-ups?
Yeah.
You know, where can I get to that's not going to take me an hour and a half to get there or whatever. Just something that's going to be feasible for me to get to. Where can I hang my rings? Where can I, you know, has anyone got any ideas where I can do some of these pull-ups? Because that was the biggest thing. Not having the pull-up bar was the biggest thing. The extra weight on the squats and things like that, well, you could just do tempo. You could always maintain.
Yes. And
knowing that if you want to get to the games, you don't really need to be super strong. But, you know,
the thing is, I knew that, but I didn't know that you knew that. And that was a fear for all of us, was that, you know, Leigh has the opportunity to make it this year, and that there's so many roadblocks. But I think even just for our listeners, you know, we were putting on Zoom classes, and we would do like Zoom classes where people would call in from home, and basically we would run through the Live Perform Compete session and basically have to adjust the shit out of the session because everyone had different equipment. You would always be there. You were like literally our most loyal Zoom LPC class attendant, which is actually pretty cool when you look back on the story now, which is like those sessions and you committing to that, and then you fast forward 4 months and you're at the CrossFit Games and you're finishing a podium. Epic. Let's talk about, you finished the Open and you're in a position now where you and Ant make a decision to fly to Dubai. Talk me through that whole period.
So of course, not seeing Ant on a regular basis because we weren't here.
Yeah, the gym was closed.
So I didn't have the chance to talk to him, like shoot the breeze and just conversation. And of course, knowing that he was going through the same things that I was, I knew that there was some stress, etc. So I didn't want to be bothering him so much with like WhatsApps or phone calls and things like that. But I knew that he was thinking of going, but wasn't really sure. There was a few places that he was thinking of going, chose Dubai eventually, but I knew that was something that he was considering as well. Like there were other options. And I think at the time, it was a case of, well, if I don't leave Hong Kong, then that's the end of my season. All that I've done over those, you know, all of that work. And
I think some context is needed, because the reason we thought it might be the end of your season was that the gyms had been closed still. They hadn't opened, unfortunately. And one of our biggest concerns was that, because we basically ran the whole Open outdoors in a little park. We basically would bring all the equipment out. Our members, whoever was left who wanted to still do it, would do the workouts in this little park, and then we'd pack everything away. And the goal was, okay, we're going to have to do this for quarterfinals again. But the one biggest thing was rope climbs. And basically every year rope climbs get programmed. We have to go to another gym in Hong Kong who's amazing at accommodating us, but they obviously wouldn't be able to do it this year because that would be breaking the law. And so the worry was, well, if rope climbs get programmed, which they are going to get programmed because they always do,
because they sent out an equipment list.
And you know, we might not be able to get you. I had literally scouted like all of Hong Kong Island trying to find a lamp post or a tree
Yeah.
that was high enough to loop a rope over. I literally couldn't find one anywhere. I did end up finding one place, by the way, on the waterfront between Kennedy Town and the gym.
Yeah.
But it was like terrifying to get up there and put the thing up that I was like, I am not risking my life.
To throw my rope, my rings over, it was just too high. But then, of course, you'd need substantial crash mats underneath, should there be any.
Yeah.
It was just too much of a worry, and we looked into getting a crane. I mean, the things when you look back on, you just think this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the biggest concern, and that was, well, if it's like that now and it's just the rope climb, what's it going to be like for the rest of it? We just didn't know.
So you guys made the decision to fly to Dubai.
Yeah.
At that point in time, did you have any idea that it was going to be 6.5 months before you returned home?
No, I think Mike was further down the line than I was. I was like increments, and he's like, look at the bigger picture. This is the possibility that you could be away for this length of time. And that just freaked me right out. I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go for that length of time. I'm going to miss yada, yada, yada. Can't do that. Don't want to do that. Not prepared to do that. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, shit, I'm going to have to, I'd be silly to myself. Everyone else is like, yeah, you must do, not everyone else, my family, yes, you must do this. Don't be silly. Let's just take it one step at a time. Don't worry about the what ifs and etc. Just, you know that you need to do this to get through to the next stage. So let's just look at that first, but bear in mind that that's at the back of your mind. That's got to be, you know. And knowing that they were very supportive, and obviously we all sat down and had a chat about it, but it really eased my mind and my thoughts about leaving. Even though it was massive, it was just such a crazy thing to even contemplate that you're going to be doing that and have to do that. I was cross that I had to do that. I was really upset and frustrated that that's what it had come to, and that it was going to mean that I was going to miss so much of my family time that was important this year. And I just thought you have this, and then there's that on the other side. And it's such a balancing act that you just got to think, well, it has to balance. There has to be, if it's weighted either way, then you're going to be resentful. You need to be okay with the fact that these are my choices and I'm making them for a reason, and I have to stick by that. So, yeah, it was the hardest decision to make, to leave, but also the only decision. There wasn't a decision to make, if that makes any sense. There wasn't an alternative. So because of that, there wasn't a decision to make. Does that make sense?
What were some of the things that were stopping you from making that decision? You said like you said like guilty.
Yeah.
You said like you didn't. There's family events, but like what were, when you dig into like what were the things that were stopping you just saying yes to it?
Well, my daughter was in her last year of school, so she was taking exams. She was having to deal with not being at school again because the closures that we had and all the restrictions that we were going through as well. So that wasn't just a smooth ride. She was turning 18, plans for her birthday. I wasn't going to be there for that. Obviously she was going to graduate. I wasn't going to be there for that. There was talk of Taylor coming home for her graduation that she'd missed the previous year because of the COVID restrictions. There was talk about her coming home. I would have missed that. Obviously Mike being at home by himself, Kenzie in and out, it was different things that were happening in his life as well. It was like, I'm just not going to be that support system that I've always been. I'm always something for everybody. You divide yourself up into all these pieces, and then suddenly I'm away from that equation, and they're like, well, who's going to fill the gaps for them? Who's going to, even if they're like, oh no, we're fine, we're good. There's always those days where, you just want to cuddle and you just want to sit with your family and just be there for them, even when you're not doing anything, and you don't have to be preparing the dinners and making sure that the laundry's done, all those things. Suddenly that's not being done. And I knew that wasn't going to be done. And it's like really difficult to come away from that, to be so selfish, to say, well, I'm doing something for myself now. Yeah.
Can I ask, having done this now and being away from him for 6 months, how has your mindset changed around that? You know, if this was to be presented again, or like all these, I guess a lot of this was like fear as to what might happen if you left. It looks like everything worked out.
Yeah.
So how has it changed?
It all works out, doesn't it? And you know, if it does work out. It might not be how you'd like it to be. It might not be the perfect scenario. It might not be how you wanted it to work, and like your thought process leading up to that, how it's going to be so wonderful, and you're going to make all these plans for them that's going to be so memorable, or just those types of thoughts that you have as a mother and as a wife and whatever. But to make sure that those things can still happen even though you're not there, will happen, but just not perhaps how you want them to be. And, you know, like I said before, and, you know, take it to the grave. My family they've been so good that there was never any, oh, you're not here for me, therefore this hasn't been done. And it would have been so different if you were here. And there wasn't any of that, you know. So, yeah, all those little scenarios that you perhaps just feel guilty that you're not providing, you're not creating those memories for them that they would have had. It's, you know, it just works out. Of course it does. You know, they still, you know, Mike did all that he could for Kenzie for her birthday. And yeah, all right, I wasn't there, but these things still happened. She still had a great time. Taylor didn't end up coming over, but, you know, she still had a great time over the summer, and she was still able to do the things that she wanted to do. And of course, coming to the games was like fantastic. And, you know, Mike was that glue. He was the one that kept it all together, and, you know, it wasn't easy for him at all. And, you know, only now am I like finding out all the little bits and pieces, because at the time he wasn't telling me about it all because he didn't want to worry me. You know, nothing I can do. It's not in my control. Nothing I can do from a distance. So therefore you don't need to know at this moment in time. So yeah, he was very good with all of that. Just, yeah, amazing. Awesome. When I think back, crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like the support of your family has been something that's really gotten you through.
Yeah, most definitely. Because who else, like my mum said to me, what other husbands would do that? I know, Mum, he's great. You know, So yeah, it's a big ask, right? But again, you know, we didn't know that it was going to be that long, but it turned out to be, and it was great. It was all for a really good cause, and for something that they knew was my dream, something that I'd put everything into in my time. Not the time that I was giving to everyone else, but like, we always had this time for myself. And yeah, you know, Mum's at the gym over that time. So, but everything else got done to a point. But do you know what I mean? So, you know, they're like, yeah, great. This is so cool. This is, you know, it's so cool to know that you're following that and being able to follow that.
So when you got on the plane, were you now like, okay, athlete mode now? This is like, now this is my time. I'm on this trip now. This is about me. Because that's the impression I got when we spoke about it. That it was like, all right, this is like, I'm not gonna let this opportunity go to waste.
Yeah, when we sat in the park outside just a couple of days before I left, it was like, you know, it's not that I'm gonna mess this up. It's just like, I am all in. I am so in, you know, and I'm just gonna do all that I can because of what I'm doing to do that. You know, all that I'm leaving behind, all that I'm not giving up, but, you know, momentarily, you know, it's all going to be me from now on. And yes, I do need to not flick a switch, but certainly have a different mindset, because I'm away now, I will be, and I'm going to be just doing all of this for myself.
What were some of those biggest things that, in terms of a mindset shift, that had to change, you know, from life in Hong Kong to now essentially having not many obligations other than just to essentially train, eat, recover and sleep? Like, what were some of the biggest changes there for you?
Just like not having to worry about anyone else, and not have the added stress of life and family and work and whatever. It was just, this is the focus now, and it is all just on me. That was a major shift. Felt a little bit weird, because, as you say, all that we did throughout all of our days there was very similar. It was on repeat, just doing the best for the goal of getting to the games.
What did that day look like? What's the day of an athlete?
The day of an
look like?
athlete was annoying Ant on a moment-by-moment basis, I think, poor guy. Let's think. So, in a nutshell, wake up, eat, gym, train for a couple of hours, 2.5 hours, something like that. Eat, if I was lucky. That was the thing. I think that was the thing that, because there was only an hour between the sessions, we didn't want to eat too much because I would then feel sluggish and lethargic, but needed to eat something because I knew that I had another double this session for the afternoon. So then we'd do another session, maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. Some type of recovery protocol, whether we'd go to the ice bath or we'd swim perhaps, wherever it might be. Eat again, watch a bit of TV, because we realised actually I was like, everything was just so intense that we ended up trying to, take our mind off things and just put the TV on and just laugh at idle stuff, right? So, and then go to sleep and then just do the whole thing again the next day. And then every now and again we'd go shopping for the food that we were eating.
I mean, like, a lot of people would listen to that and be like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. That sounds like you're living the dream. But I know it's not as easy as it sounds.
No.
What were some of the biggest challenges for you?
Eating enough. Eating to perform. Eating for recovery. Eating. And I just wasn't eating enough. It's I know that might even sound really ridiculous to some, but you do need to just keep eating. And yeah, okay, I had my routines. I had the things that I would eat, and I know that I need to do certain things after training, and I would never been one to weigh my food or be too conscious about portion sizes and things like that. So, but I was always on track. I felt I was on track. I was always fine. Wasn't even a problem. But then, of course, doing these double sessions, and of course being in the heat and all the and the sweating and all of those things that were extra. Ant did his best to try and make me eat as much as I could, but it was just like, I can't eat anymore. It's just like, eat it. And it's just like, it was hard.
What about being in a completely foreign environment? In a gym that you've never really been in, training every day, really by yourself. Because Ant was also preparing for the semi-finals and his goals as well. So I know a lot of times you kind of in your area doing your own thing. What was that like?
Well, I think Ant knew a lot of the people that were there before I'd shown up. So he was quite friendly with lots of the people that were at the gym. And then, of course, when I showed up, a week or so later, he obviously introduced me to those people, and they were very accommodating and were just like, oh my God, I can't believe you're here and you're doing the same as Ant. And, it's just, the whole story with lockdown, etc. And it's so cool, or whatever. And they were very accepting. It was really nice. But yes, I was training by myself. I think at the time, some of the program was still coming from you with the semi-final, and then after that I was just doing programming from Ant. So it was, I was in my own little sort of like bubble, really, just doing my stuff, knew what I had to do from my phone, and then just got on and done that, and would be seeing the same people day in and day out, and getting a little bit closer and talking and having a bit more of a friendship with them, and seeing them outside of the gym as well, which was really cool. So yeah, it was.
Was it lonely ever?
Yeah, there were times where I just thought, I think in the first probably month or so, I didn't see much of Ant because we just saw each other at the gym because we were not living at together at that point. And I could see on his Instagram that he was doing all these different things, and I was just like, what am I doing? And I'm here by myself, and actually I was staying with a friend at the time, which was fantastic, but I was hardly there. I wasn't really doing anything with the family. I was just, of course, because I was doing all my training. And then it was just like, I did feel really lonely, and I did think, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? And then I would almost not resent the fact that Ant was having this great time. You know, of course you only put your highlights on your Instagram and stuff. But of course I, then realised that he also had his, not insecurities, but was obviously missing home, same as myself. It's the same, we're just human, right? So I think he then said, I didn't realise that you were, you felt that way, or that, just come with us, or just, and I think he then sort of like invited me along to a few more things that they were doing, and therefore I got a little bit more involved with the other couple and some others that were in the gym. So yeah, and then it was a bit more of a acceptance and a come along type of thing. So yeah, I felt a bit better after that. But yeah, for that first probably month, 5 weeks, yeah, it was pretty, God, what am I doing? Yeah.
Was there ever a point where you thought, nah, I'm not doing this anymore?
No. It was, it was just me feeling sorry for myself. That's all that it was. And that's, I knew that. And of course we all get a little bit, I'd love to have done that. Or, I wish I was invited. Why am I not invited? And then you think, well, I'm just some old bird that, here for the ride. And it's just like, no, I'm here for a reason, and I'm, going to give my best at what I'm doing here. And yeah, okay, I'm a senior, but I'm still a person, and I can still offer, good vibes every now and again. But do you know what I mean? It's just like, I didn't want to be a write-off. I didn't want to be like, let's just forget about, because she's the old bird. Yeah, everyone's mum. But but again, that's all just that mental side of things, and things that you go through your head.
Yeah, the stories we tell ourselves.
I'm not an individual. I'm irrelevant. And the guys at Goliath were obviously competing themselves. They've got their own goals to. So Ant was very much involved with them very much started to get involved with them because he realised that they needed the help, and they were accepting of his help, which was fabulous. It was so good to see the turnaround when Ant got involved with them. It was great to see as well. But it was nice because we were all training together. We all, as I said, although I was doing my own thing, I was still part of the gym when everybody was working towards their goals. It wasn't, it was like the open gym time, like when it's just away from regular classes, so that that people are there for a good reason, really. Do you see what I mean? So after the quarterfinals, you and Ant both do the quarterfinals together. Yeah. Amongst the whole Goliath community, it looked awesome, from the outside. It was really cool for us. Like we all watch you via Zoom calls every day. And I know that was a bit of a weird experience for you as well, you were saying. Yeah. But then fast forward to the semi-finals, you now have to finish. It's an online competition for the Masters. You have to finish top 10 if you want to get to CrossFit Games. At the same time, Ant had his semi-finals in Korea. So this is probably the first time in Dubai that you guys were actually apart. Yeah, how's your luck? Yeah. And how was that? It was like, after all that we've done, it happens to be the same weekend. It's just like, how's the luck? How's my luck? Again, it's just like, we're going really well. Oh, crap. It's like another hurdle. That's all that it was. It was just like, I'll be fine. I've just got to do my thing. It will be okay. But yeah, shame he's not here. But he's doing his own thing. It's great. He's got his own, goal he is chasing also. So, again, it was just like a moment of, Christ, worries me. But actually, no, this is good. I'm going to stand by myself. I did actually have the support from from Goliath, which was fantastic. And of course, Ant was doing his thing as well as the team was there too. So that was great for him. He had company, right? So he wasn't just by himself, which was, again, a bonus, I think, because, doing all that, arranging everything yourself is just hard enough, but to actually be there by yourself for all that time would have been mentally tough as well. I know Ant's really good at stuff like that, but even so, to have the rest of the crew there was golden, I'm sure, for him. And then, of course, for myself, Jake stayed behind. He was going to go to Korea because Kaz was in the team. And when I heard that, I thought, crap, who's going to be here for me? And I just thought, actually, well, you just got to do it yourself. Well, yeah, I know that, but you need support. You're so far away from home. You can't just ring up your buddy to see what you're doing at the weekend. It's like, oh, what am I going to do? And I'm trying to think, well, who do I know, you know, and who can help at that level, right? That's the thing. You need to know someone's going to be able to, you know, help you.
Judge,
and
give you advice.
Exactly. The whole judging thing at that level was like, again, you know, everyone knows how important it is to get it right. And it wasn't quite right on one of mine, and I had to redo that. So yeah, all that stuff was playing on my mind. And then when Jake said, actually, I'm going to bin that because it's way too expensive and I can't afford the time of work, or whatever it was, his reasonings, I was like, oh yeah, I'm sorry about that, but great.
Yes.
You know, like,
in hindsight,
really
are you happy to have done that experience by yourself, to have like done something of that level without the guidance of a coach? Did it teach you anything?
I know myself that I always do better when Ant's by my side. He knows me as an athlete. He knows when I need to push. He knows when I'm not pushing hard enough, and he knows when I've got more to give. And just a few little cues can get you back on track. You know, just that whole relationship that, you know, I feel like I have with Ant now. And I was upset that wasn't going to be there for me. And I of course, I knew that I had to do the best I could, of course. But just, a little bit upset that he wasn't going to be there, and that, crap, I now need to do this all by myself, and I've really got to dig deep for that and be able to deliver. Acknowledgement
that it would have been better to have him there, but at the end of the day, you just got to get on with it and do what you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I feel like you did all right.
I did all right, didn't I?
Can I just ask, you know, going into the semi-finals, did you expect to qualify? Honestly, give me your honest answer. Did you think you were going to qualify to the CrossFit Games?
When I saw that it was those 11-foot wall balls, I just thought, oh no, this could be the end of my season. I did. And really? I just thought, because I just thought, oh, you know, but then I thought, actually, looking at that leaderboard, I would have to have done so badly to have not got through the top 10 that on that last day, I thought I was going. I thought, I can't not be going, even if I didn't do that workout. I think I'd still gotten through, perhaps.
Because, I mean, I think looking at the scoreboard and how it all shaped up in the quarterfinals, like, barring a disaster, I felt like she's going to go before the workouts even got released. And I think, you know, we know what movements aren't as much in your wheelhouse as others. But there's also, which I think you don't give yourself credit for, how many workouts are actually in your wheelhouse. How many things you're actually really good at. Like, you're actually world class at handstand push-ups and anything on your hands and upside down. And I mean that not even in your division. Like, you destroy me in any handstand push-up workout, which is funny / humbling / upsetting. So I think you don't give yourself credit for how many things you're actually really, really good at. And I know CrossFit is often about averages, but you know, when you have so many things that you're really good at, you can afford to get away with having a couple of things you're not so good at. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's how I managed to keep hold of that top 3. Going into the end of day 1, I think I was in first. Going into day 2, I was leading, and throughout that day. But of course, I knew that the last day's events were not going to be that great for me. And I know that we don't like to say what's good for me, what's bad for me, but you know, you kind of have an idea, right, of like where we're going to be on that. And I just needed to be consistent, right? I needed to be within that. Didn't need to be first, didn't need to be second or third, but as long as I was in sort of like came top 6 in both of those and above in those events, then I would hang on to my second spot. How did it feel knowing that you've now made it to CrossFit Games, that goal that you set out all those years before, the goal you've fallen short on so many times? You also had an extra hurdle you had to go through this year because they didn't have these Masters semi-finals. How did it feel knowing I'm going to CrossFit Games? It was quite surreal, actually. It really was, because there's so many times where it might not have happened. Did it ever feel like, okay, my job's done, I've achieved my goal, or was the goal is actually to perform at the CrossFit Games? Yeah, I needed to perform at the CrossFit Games for sure. I had that weighing on my mind. I had that all the time I needed to perform. I needed to do well.
and I myself just didn't want to come last. I think literally the day before or something, I said to Ant, I want to be top 5. I don't want to be anything less than that. And I just think after that first day, because you don't know where you're going to be, and my headspace is not in the best. And I was just like, do I deserve to be here? Should I be here? Yeah, I've done a lot of work, but so is everyone else. So is everyone else. And, I don't know how I'm going to be. And there was that pressure to be good at what I was doing.
Was there pressure? Was that pressure you put in yourself? Because I know we had a chat about this before the games kicked off.
It was, of course, pressure that I put on myself because nobody said to me, you need to do well. You've put in all this. And I've done this, like looking at Ant. I mean, it's just a rock, just was so good through all of it that he would never have said that. That's just not, I know that. But I just wondered that because everything was so different this year for him and for myself, and of course he's coaching me and all of those things, everything was different for both of us this year. There was pressure. And I just thought at the back of my mind, I want to do well for him and for his family and for Tammy and for all that he'd left behind.
Was there any point where you felt guilty about like keeping Ant there? Is that how you felt?
Yeah, most definitely. Of course, he had his own goals. So up until Korea, it was all good. We were like on the same page. We were working to the same goal.
He had his goals. You had your goals. Yeah.
So, so we were both there for for our own purpose and for our own goals. And then he was doing his last chance qualifier. But I'm not sure did he know that when he first left Korea? Because there was that whole...
No, he knew he was going to go back and do the last chance qualifiers there.
But he could have done that in Hong Kong, right? Because there would be plenty of time for him to have done the qualifiers and then to get to the games, should that be the path. He didn't need to stay there for me. So knowing that he did created more pressure for me. I put more pressure on myself. I don't know if you put pressure on yourself, but I felt the pressure myself.
You had created an expectation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which actually wasn't there, because in Ant's words, like, actually his goal had now become, I want to coach an athlete at the CrossFit Games. And it was, you could hear that and think that's selfish on his part. And at no point was it about necessarily like putting pressure on you to have to achieve anything. No. There was no, there was... Can I ask about and we're going to talk about the CrossFit Games in a second, but this idea of not wanting to come last, where'd that come from? And what is it about coming last that scares you?
God, it's just a bit of an embarrassment. And even though you think, well, actually, top 10 is still a bloody good achievement. And if it were the year before, it'd have been top 20 or whatever. And to have come 10, would I have been upset? Probably not. But to have come 10 out of 10 would have just been, no, I don't do that.
Why?
Just, I don't know. Could have done better. Should have tried harder.
Do you think it's linked at all to what people might think about you?
Yeah, of course. There's always that, Yeah. Because, you want to be relevant, right? You want to be, you don't want to just want to, I want to be relevant. I don't want to just be one of the 10. I wanted to as I say, like after that first day, I thought, far out,
you belong here.
Yeah. Whereas going into that, if you'd have said that to me 2 days before, I'd have been crapping myself. I'm like...
I feel like something you were saying consistently was that you felt like you didn't belong.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because I think the perception that we have of games athletes, they're almost like inhuman. They're like not real people. They're just machines, and they live a different life to everybody else. And you put them on this pedestal, and then it's like, well, actually, they're not. They're just normal people that do really well at their sport. And whatever level that's at, yes, I was amongst my peers, my crew, my section, right? So, but I wasn't really sure that I belonged there because I just didn't think that I was good enough. Yeah, okay, I'd gotten through, but not that it was a fluke, but just that, I don't know, I know that for myself, there are goals that I wanted to hit this year that I hadn't, and I'm thinking, I should be able to do that if I'm a CrossFit athlete. I should be better at that if I'm a CrossFit athlete. But I'm benchmarking myself against Tia Claire Toomey. You know, and it's just like, that's just not realistic. I understand that, but I always feel like I could do better. I should be doing better. I should be in a better space than I'm at right now. If I'd have done that, then maybe I could feel more confident in myself. But just, it's all part of my, you know, headspace, and just difficult to accept, I think.
Can I ask then, having been to the CrossFit Games now and achieved what you did, do you still have those, do you still feel like you don't belong?
No.
And I think it's important to recognise that. You know, that this was your first time. You had nothing to compare to. And I mean, totally normal feelings, everything you were feeling. And you had to experience it. You had to experience it to know that actually, it's not what I thought it was going to be. So let's talk about the CrossFit Games now. What was it like checking in and like arriving in Madison and like going in and getting your gear, and what was that whole process like?
Well, you know what I'm like when I'm doing, or I have been like, leading up to the Open here, different things we've been doing. It's just been a mess, right? I would wake up in the morning and it would be on my mind straight away, and it would just
What was on your mind straight away? Just
being like in a normal Open situation here, dealing with the things that I would do here. It's just like being able to hope that everything goes well. Well, you've got to make sure that it goes well. You have to plan it that way. Once it's all planned that way, then everything else is by the by. You know, you've done what you can to make sure this happens, and you know, you've got your bits under control. But I never really had my head under control. It was just all over the place, and I'm just like hoping to do better, wanting to do well, hoping that I do it faster than I did in training, or whatever it might be.
Hoping you don't fail, hoping you don't disappoint people, hoping you don't embarrass yourself.
Yeah. All of that. Yeah, all that comes into play.
And what did you do? Because I feel, can I just say one thing I feel like you've evolved so much in, and speaking to you today, is this acknowledgement of what's in my control and what's out of my control. Because you said it a few times in the podcast, and I feel like that's like a new Leigh Coates mindset that I haven't heard before. Just wanted to say that. But then also, you know, when these thoughts would set off, and you know, I would assume, because I've experienced them many times in my life in different areas, definitely in sport, but definitely in business as well. Sometimes, you know, it's like the moment you have a moment of quiet, suddenly they just go crazy, and all the thoughts are flashing through your head, and your body temperature's increasing, your palms are sweating, heart rate's increasing. What were you doing in those moments to try and, you know, create some form of control?
So that would be my usual situation. I got to the games, and it was like an acceptance on some level. It was like, well, I'm here. And, you know, the chats that Ant and I had were plentiful to get my head in that space also. And I just thought, well, let's just see what happens. It's like, you know, I've ticked the box. I've made my goal. I'm here, and I'm here for a reason. I've earned my spot here. So let's just see what happens now, right? So the morning of my first event, I woke up really quite calm. Yeah, my head was full, of course it was. You know, I think, you know, songs were going around in my head. The minute I fell asleep, the minute I woke up, they were still in my head. And I mean, stupid things like that. Waking up.
That happens to me every day here.
Does it?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So like waking up, you know, I would sleep well, but I would wake up to go to the toilet like early morning. I never used to do that at all, but that just seemed to be a pattern that I'd gotten into. And as I say, like falling asleep, couldn't fall asleep directly because I've got all these songs going in my head. That's probably ants singing all day. And then like waking up straight. But actually when I got to the games, it was very, very different. It was, right, well, it's game day. But that didn't fill me with dread and anticipation and anxiety that I was just like, welling up or making you freeze or whatever the description might be. It wasn't like that at all. It was just quite calm and okay, let's just you know, I know what I've got to do, and I just got to stick to the plan. You know, I've just got to do my best and stick to the plan. And that's all I can ask for, right? So I think that was something that surprised myself. I surprised myself with that thought process and how I could eat my breakfast and it wasn't making me gag. And I could, you know, I saw the Alliance Centre and we like pulled in and I wasn't like, oh my God, you know, like full of anxiety and feeling sick, or, you know, that flush of heat or the whatever it might be.
Which you have experienced in the past.
Oh my God, yeah. Just like doing the Open most years, you know.
So what was different about being at the games versus doing the CrossFit Open? Was it the fact that like, well, I'm here now, I've made it, I've done my job.
Yeah.
Now it's just be present and experience it.
Yeah. There was such a road that, you know, a bumpy road that had led to that. I just thought, well, actually, from now on, it's, you know, I'm here and I've just got to do what I can do. You know, I've just got to put all of that into practice that I've learned, and all of that, you know, the mindset and the, you know, the chats that Ant and I had, you know, and I just thought, well, you know, let's do it.
I mean, I know this is easy to say, but now when you think to like the CrossFit Open next year, and you're going to go through all of this again,
Probably.
I assume.
Probably.
Are you going to try to?
I will do the
Are you going
Open,
to try to adopt that mindset that you put into the CrossFit Games of like, you know what, it doesn't matter. Like, I just need to be here and give it my best shot, because you know you probably found that's when you performed your best as well. You know, you're going to try and take that mindset and try apply it to.
Yeah. Try.
It's hard.
It is hard because you never know what the test's going to be, and you never know how it's going to be, and.
It'll be interesting to see if all these things do come back to you.
Yeah.
Like all the same feelings of like disappointment, pressure, letting people down. It'll be interesting if they do come back.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about your first event, because you won the first event at the CrossFit Games. The skills chipper, that was event 1, was it not?
No, that
wasn't event 1.
That was not. That was
event
not
3.
Event.
Event 1 was the 3 ways down. You took a third. Did you cross the finish line and were like, what?
Yeah. Well, there's 10 of us, of course, right? So, but you're so far away from your next competitor, you can't really see what's going on and who's ahead and who's not, or what weights they're lifting and what you're doing, because you've got to stay in your own lane. Of course, you've just got to do your own race, but it's difficult to know what's going on. So I didn't know where I was within that space. You can't always hear what the announcements are or what the announcer is saying, and because you're so like got your own thing going on in your head, that you're thinking of weights and numbers and trying to keep to a certain pace and all these things that and of course you can hear the crowd, and then I sometimes heard my family, and it was just like, you know, I've just got to, you know, try and cancel out all of that and just do what I can do. So I had no idea where I was at, to be honest. Couldn't see what they were lifting, couldn't see. When we all got off the bike, we knew that we were all off the bike in 5 minutes, but otherwise I had no idea what calories they were hitting, no idea at all. I could see that there was somebody next to me though, that her legs were going really fast, but then on the other side of me, they were really slow. And I'm thinking, am I doing this wrong? But then I'm like, no, just stay with what I'm doing, and you know, just look at that screen and just see those numbers and stick with that. Don't worry about what they're doing.
After that first event, did things feel different?
Yeah, it was like the whole experience of doing an event at the CrossFit Games in the Coliseum was like, oh wow, it was just like amazing. Of course we don't have all the crowds there, but there is a crowd, and you do have some media there, etc. And of course you're all there for the same good. But it was like, okay, I've done that one now. And I was super nervous by the time I'd got to the warm-up area and was, you know, like being called over and in the corral and with the others, because I'd not really seen them. It's sort of past them in warm-up area, but not really. We'd not really introduced ourselves at all, and they all seemed really calm and collected, and I'm just freaking out inside thinking, am I the only like rookie here? And I think I was, actually. They'd all been there like multiple times. Crazy. And they all seemed really calm and all chatty, and I'm like,
I'm sure if you took a dive into their head, Leigh, they probably weren't. all fully
I
calm.
don't know. They all seem so calm. They're just like chatting and shooting the breeze. And I'm like, we're at the games. What, you know,
Yeah.
am I the only one like freaking out and keeping myself to myself? And yeah, but yeah, great. I mean, yeah, as I say, a few of them had been there like 9 times.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Can I
crazy.
ask you, what was your favourite moment of the CrossFit Games?
2 moments. Walking through the tunnel to pick up my kit was just unbelievable.
Why?
Because you check in and there was obviously loads of people around, but they did it, of course, by age groups, or it would have been by age groups. You check into the desk and then you get assigned a noble body, right? That person walks with you, and Ant was with me, and they escort you through this sort of like section, and then it feels like you're going through a tunnel. And that tunnel just like was enclosing in on me because it was dark. And at the end of that tunnel, it wasn't a very long tunnel, was another check-in desk where you would say your name and who you were. And they were all so lovely and, you know, so appreciative that you're there and that you've done so well to get there. And that was like the first, you know, congratulations that I'd had really of being there. And I thought that's really nice, you know, that you're being relevant and appreciated, and you're being told, okay, this is such and such, and she's going to help you go through, and she's going to show you where you. So then you'll go through, and oh my god, I was a mess. I was just like, I couldn't keep it together. And even now I'm thinking, oh my god. And well, the guy that was at the desk, because as I'm walking towards the desk, I'm trying to hold it together, but I just couldn't. And the man looked at Ant, and Ant's sort of like, it's all right, she's all right. Leave her for a minute. And he's like, is she all right? So he's like, yeah, she's okay. But I wasn't really okay. I was just a mess. It was just so overwhelming. So like as I walked in, there was just a few people there. It was sort of dimly lit. It was a beautiful atmosphere. And there was like a row of lockers here and a row of lockers, like little cubicles really. And then you just saw your name. And she said to me, well, can you see your name? And I'm just like, through my tears, I was just a mess. And Ant was just like, oh, she'll be all right.
Can I ask, what were the feelings? Like, what was triggering the emotions?
It was just like, fuck me, I'm here.
Yeah. All the hard work.
It was like, you know, like you see that, right, on other people's socials and you're like, oh man, that's so cool. And then you're like, actually, you're there and you see your name and it's just like, just so overwhelming. And it's so, oh my God, yeah, I am here. It's like, fuck me, I made it. It was like, so this is amazing. It was a very, very cool experience. It was just all the kit that was there. And of course, they couldn't put everything in this small little cubicle because there's just so much of it. So you would try things on to see that, you know, it fit you properly, or if you needed anything adjusting, or you needed to have different sizes or whatever. It was just one thing after another. Taking off, pulling on, taking off, pulling on. But just so much stuff. It was just, quite unbelievable. And of course, seeing your name on your T-shirt and your number and your number on everything was just, oh my God, this is me. This is me.
It was really cool for me. And it was the same year that Ant competed as well, was seeing CSTL, like Coastal Fitness, on your T-shirt as well. Made me really proud. Yeah. As well as being, of course, immensely proud of you. But because obviously it's in very small writing, and at first when you sent the photo through of you and your kit, I was like, that's so cool that she's wearing our gym. She's there. Yeah. What was the second favourite moment?
So the second favourite was winning that first event. The third event. Yeah.
Why?
Again, you jump onto that sort of like podium box at the end
finishing
of your
line,
at the end of your lane, and I'm, where is everyone? Like, couldn't see, couldn't hear. Of course, you know, the last bit I was upside down anyway, so you're a little bit disorientated, like. But I had no idea where I was at. I knew that I was ahead, but I had no idea how far ahead. Jumped onto that mat and turned around and was like, wow, you know, just jumping onto that mat was amazing. Just so good, because I knew that I was out front. And but so jumping on that was just, oh my God, yes, I done it. Look at me.
Can I ask, what was your least favourite event of the CrossFit Games? Or not even event, just your least favourite moment?
My least favourite moment. I don't know that I had a least favourite moment, to be honest. It was all very valuable, all very humbling for sure. Yeah, I think those bloody wall balls just do me. They just kill me. They crush me, and they shouldn't, but they do. And I've got to get my head off that, because I know then that I'm just gassed for the next part, and then that puts me down for the next part, and I think I should have done so much better in other places, and I really need to work on my empty the tank. For whatever reason, I don't do that. Even at the games, I mean, Anta tried to get me to do that a few times in training in those last 2 weeks in Dubai. And, even set up scenarios. This is the last game of the CrossFit Games, and you're blah, 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 blah. We would have, it was quite cool the way we try and get me to empty the tank. And on some of them I actually did. But even at the games, I'm like, I don't know, wasn't holding back for sure, but wasn't completely empty. I think maybe at the back of my mind, I know that I've still got other events to do. And then how am I going to recover from that? I'm not going to.
That's not necessarily a bad mindset to have. Like, the longevity of the athlete over a weekend is actually something that sometimes you have to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, there wasn't like one event or one thing. There wasn't.
So can I ask, having now, obviously we should talk about the result. You finished second. We've got the medal right here. Thanks for bringing that in. I'm looking forward to my photo shoot with John afterwards with the medal on. But at the end of it,
because we did that. It's not just me. We did that.
Oh, I love that.
Couldn't have done it without you guys.
Yeah. Are you surprised you finished second?
Would have, like I said, I didn't want to finish last. After the first couple of events, I thought, I don't want to be top 5. I knew that I was in the middle of that pack where they put you along like this, and when they call out your names, every time I was in that middle part of that line, and I just thought, I don't want to move a spot either way from where I'm at right now. And I've just got to do my best to just stay right here. And even though I knew that might not be possible on that last day, I was still like so happy to be where I was at and to have maintained that position throughout the week when I went into it thinking, I don't even know if I deserve to be here. So, it was, quite overwhelming.
And having experienced this year, like, how does this change it? Does this change anything for next year? Do you want to get back there? Is that the goal?
Yeah.
Do you want to be at the games every year the day you die?
Yeah, be that oldest competitor. Who knows? I do love it. I do enjoy all aspects, even the bits that I'm shitty at. I love it all. It's all something there's always something to improve and to get better. I really enjoy. I just really enjoy it. And nothing's changed. Yes, come the Open, I'll still do the Open. I've not thought, I've done, it's funny. Some people say, well, now you've done it, what's next? Or what are you going to do next? Or is that done? You've ticked that box and you're moving on to something else. And then you've got others that are just like, do you want to be number 1? Is that, and you're like, well, yes and no, but that's quite a funny thing to say, really. It's like, dude, I'm second. It's great. Of course we all want to be first, but I'm happy to be second. I think what I have achieved is pretty phenomenal, to be fair, with all the lead up to it. It hasn't been an easy ride. It hasn't, although I've been consistent, I've worked with what I've got, and I've always said that, work with what I can and do what I can with what I've got. And, so I'm happy. No, I'm not going to go back to hopefully get back to the games next year and think I'm going to try for number 1, because there's going to be new people coming in. There's going to be different events that's going to be there that who knows how I'm going to do. And you can't say, oh, well, because you were so, you did well that year, that you're going to do well the next year. Well, we know that that's not the case, because even just the way that things are put together can change your performance. So we'll see. I'm definitely going to be training as I would. I'm still going to train hard. I'm going to do the Open, and then we'll hopefully get through to the quarters and semis if that's what happens. And yeah, we'll see if I'm going to stay here or have to go over to Dubai again.
Well, Leigh, I think it's a phenomenal thing what you've achieved, regardless of the circumstances. Like COVID or not, gym closure or not, making it and doing what you did after all the years. And I want to see, we talked about this before the podcast, was that, there were some workouts I remember that came out in the Open and the quarterfinals where we were all thinking, that's just way too easy for Leigh. Like jumping pull-ups. Leigh Coates should not be doing jumping pull-ups. She could do muscle-ups, for God's sake. But it's because we have lost perspective here at Coastal and Hong Kong of what most of the people in your category are achieving and doing. And I just honestly don't even think of you as a masters athlete. Right. That's because basically every workout we do together, you're either right there with me or beating me, which is ridiculous, to be honest. And so I honestly think it's pretty phenomenal, regardless of the circumstances that led you into it, that you achieved what you did. I'm not surprised you finished where you did. But more importantly, I love the reflections and just hearing you talk about the experience. And you're a different person actually now, from that 6 months. Your mindset, I know you said that you're in your head and your mindset is the thing that lets you down. But I think that year, that 6 months away has... I don't know, it's the beginnings of something amazing, I think, for you. And I'm excited to see, if you go through that journey again, what that's going to lead to. And in terms of you as a person, and as well, of course, what that looks like at the CrossFit Games if you ever make it again. But on behalf of myself and obviously everyone at Coastal on the Process program, we're so bloody proud of you. And being able to watch you on a little Zoom screen, as much as we all wanted to be there with you, was still special. And thanks for letting us be a part of the journey the whole time.
Well, it wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for the process, for sure. It's always been so good for me to have the progressions and the way that it is programmed, for sure. It's so super easy to see where you're going and to know where you need to push and that type of thing. So, it's just been, a really good program for myself, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Leigh, thanks for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome.
And we look forward to watching your journey next year.
Thanks.